our spirituality, I feel like sometimes it could wage a warfare on us if we're not careful. And so I would think in my mind, if I go to a doctor, this means I don't trust God. This means I don't believe in miracles.
Wow.
And it's like my own spirituality started to sort of taunt me. And it was, I felt really helpless in that. And I thought, well, I want to trust God. I want to believe that I'm going to have this miracle baby, but I also think I might need some help.
Hi, I'm Caroline Howard, a biblical counselor and certified life breakthrough coach.
And I'm Chris Oneth, marriage and family therapist and executive director of Downey Park Counseling Associates.
Welcome to Our Next Question, where we attempt to answer the questions of life through conversations in psychology and Christianity.
Remember, this is a place of discovery and definitely not the final answer.
Okay, welcome back.
We've started another episode.
Whew, it's still July. It's still hot.
What's your story? We've got
Summer
a new
series.
AC unit in this room, and we have to run it in between episodes because during the episode it makes noise.
That's good that you told people that. They might have thought it was something robotic, and this is like...
That's true.
This
There
is
you
our
go.
new AI therapist.
Wow. Don't even joke about that.
No, they've tried
my
it.
goodness.
They've tried it, and it's gone horrible.
Good.
Yeah, dude, you cannot do AI therapy.
Well,
I'm
and by
sorry.
the way, and listen, those telehealth, as in video therapy or whatever, has made it accessible to many different people, but there's also understandable drawbacks to it.
There is.
Right? In other words, not being in the same room with someone blunts some of the communication that goes on. So that can explain why a lot of people they're not perfectly okay with like teletherapy.
Yeah.
They want the face-to-face, which
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah.
And Downey Park provides that. So, but,
I feel like AI therapy, people are already doing it by Googling all their symptoms
oh, there you go.
and diagnosing them.
has
That always goes great, right?
Yeah,
Right?
hasn't WebMD taught us enough?
I mean, I
had
do
cancer.
it. I'm not just dogging people because I totally do it myself.
Oh, I've had cancer 8 times, 8 different ones.
I go to the doctor and my doctor will Google stuff.
Wow.
I'm serious. He'll be like, well, I think it's this. And then he's like, wait, look, read that. Does that sound? And I'm like,
Oh, boy.
that's where we're at now. I hope my doctor doesn't listen to this podcast.
Owie. Okay.
We have a guest.
Hey, we do.
We should introduce her so she doesn't have to sit here all quietly.
Elaina, she's very polite. She's not going to interject.
No.
Maybe
We have
she
a-
should. You have permission.
I want to see if I can do I'm gonna do your name right too. I'm gonna get Elaina right. This is Elaina Ayala.
Yes. We practiced so much.
Nailed it.
Hey, so she let us know she heard a couple of the episodes, so thank you very
did.
much. But did you know that I was there was a celebrity sighting? Me. I was approached on the street as because of our podcast.
Really?
Wow.
Well,
Wait,
technically,
is this the one you texted me about?
technically, it wasn't on the street; it was in our office.
Oh, well,
Well,
And very, very kind lady said, she looks at me and she has a smile on her face. She goes, "You're the one on the podcast." And I'm like,
If
why?
you had hair, you would have flung it.
Ma'am, yeah, if I had hair.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, and I said, I said, you listen to podcasts? She says, yes. I said, you're the one. And
You have to
and
stop
so
saying that.
it was. I know. I jest. And then another a friend of mine from high school, a guy named George Graves, and I am totally name dropping, and I will let him know that I'm doing this. Like, apparently he had listened to the one where I told my story, and he alluded that he had other stories about me.
Oh, so we need to have him on, is what I hear you say.
You hear that, George? So
we can
George
get
was
the
George was
stories.
a cool kid during high school. We were buddies. We hung out in different groups and sometimes together. Cool. And he was he was a smart head, so he was into like technological stuff. And he had the coolest car. He had a BMW as a kid. Ooh. And he's always been a car guy. And I've come to appreciate cars. And so one of these days, well, I'm sure we'll have a beer or something over talking about cars.
Okay.
there you go.
So shout out to George Graves.
I love it.
There you go.
Okay,
Did
serious
you-
question.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Were you at the taco trucks a couple days ago?
I'm always at the taco trucks.
Another
I saw
celebrity
you
every single day.
at the
Another
taco
one.
truck,
Wait,
and
which-
I recognized you from the podcast.
No.
Yes.
I see. So there was a
I'm
celebrity
not
sighting.
kidding.
I'm the celebrity.
I was driving down the street and I looked to my right at the taco trucks, as I do. And
Which
I
taco
saw
trucks?
David's.
Oh, of
you
course.
literally were
It
just
was
talking
you.
about
I know
that
it
on
was
the
you.
last-
I was there today.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Is that where you saw me today?
No, it was like last week.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Elena, do you know what you've just
I
done
use
to
a-
all of
I
us?
use a. I cannot stop
so
whatever
funny.
stuff he's putting in the tacos. It's working because
Yes.
I am.
Agreed.
Are you
jump
giving
on the-
autographs out yet?
I don't. Well, you know,
You better
if
start
if it
carrying
comes
around
to
a
that.
Sharpie just in case.
Usually,
Sure.
when I notice people and I look, and then I smack into the back of something else if I'm driving. So, congratulations on your driving skills, Elaina.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay, I have a favor to ask now, all of our listeners and watchers. Could you all not approach Chris in the wild? Because those of us who have to spend more time with him,
Is it feeding something?
we have to deal with the.
Please,
With that,
I do
okay?
not have time to sign another autograph.
Oh Lord.
Just kidding.
I'm just 2-1, Caroline. Of course, again, I don't know the one counts because I was in my office. So
Well, I mean, you have people quote me to you
that's
constantly.
true.
So
that is true.
So you're memorable in the looks. I'm memorable in the word.
That is the first time I've actually been accused of that.
I've got the depth. There you go.
Okay, Elaina.
Okay, enough about you, Chris. Let's go to Elaina.
Yes, exactly. This is not my story.
This is not your story.
So, Elaina, what do? Tell us about a little overview about the
All the
position in
hats you
life
wear.
you
All the hats.
have right
You have
now.
a lot of hats.
Okay. So I'm a mom of 2 boys.
Okay.
One just turned a year old.
Wow.
One is almost 3 years old.
Wow, youngins.
So yes, very little, very cute.
Yes, I imagine.
I'm a wife of 13 years.
Okay.
And I am the executive pastor of campuses here at a church in town, Harvest Church.
Yes, friend of Downey
multi-campus
Park.
Church. Yes,
Yes.
that's actually where I heard of Downey Park years back, was through our church. So,
Okay.
been there since 2010, serving in a pastoral role probably the last 8 years, I would say.
Wow.
And then also more recently, probably in the last 8-9 months or so, just started doing life coaching and pastoral counseling outside of the church.
Wow.
So been
Very
doing
cool.
that, and it's been a
she's
lot of
rocking
fun.
it.
Thank you. Thank
Totally
you.
Very
recommend.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
So, how did you get into the pastoring?
You know, I wasn't raised in church at
Okay.
all. And so when I surrendered my life to Christ, I was about 19 years old, and I knew nothing else other than just full-time radical ministry lifestyle. I mean,
Okay.
that's what I was saved into.
Okay.
Was part of a discipleship program that we all lived together. We were going out of state ministering to different
Wow.
towns.
Like a
and-
commune?
Well, sort of. Bunch of girls, roommates.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I didn't really know anything else other than that. Went to a ministry school, and I met a man who also had an interest in ministry and pursuing the Lord in that way.
Yeah, Christian
and so,
women find that very attractive.
they do. So yeah, we applied at our church for ministry credentialing, and
Nice.
So we're credentialed under our church, Harvest
nice.
Church.
Okay.
So yeah, I love our church. Been there, it said since 2010, and just family.
My gosh. Well,
Yep.
time goes by fast because
It
it's
does.
now fast forward to 2024, 14 years
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
I love it.
Elaina, what's your
What's your
story?
story?
What's my story? Okay.
Good job.
Thanks.
All right. How much time do I have? 3 hours?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, awesome.
Whatever you need.
Okay, so let's see. I don't know how far back I want to start, but I really want to get to the good part, which is I would say my big testimony, which was walking through an infertility journey. So I mentioned earlier, gave my life to Christ, surrendered my life to Christ at 19 years old. Prior to that, home life was pretty chaotic, pretty crazy, a lot of abuse, different things going on. I learned at a really young age to be a hustler. Get things done, make it happen, figure it out.
Okay.
Really prided myself on that attribute. If y'all are into Enneagram, I'm a classic Enneagram 3 to the
Oh.
max. Like, that's just how I am wired.
That's Caroline's favorite, by the way.
I know. She loves it. So I've got a lot of insights actually about myself.
So siblings, how many siblings you have?
Yep.
Family background?
So in the house, I had an older sister about 10 years older than me, and
Oh,
then
wow.
a brother who's about 2 years older than me. Have another 3 sisters.
Oh, wow.
outside from my dad's previous relationship.
Okay.
Wasn't raised with my dad in the house, so had sisters, but they weren't in the house. But
Okay.
there was just 3 of us. My mom worked multiple jobs,
Ah.
bartending, just really trying her best to make ends meet.
Yes.
And so we kind of had to just figure stuff out.
Wow.
And so
So you were on your own.
We were, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, she did her best, and she's
And God bless single moms, man.
totally. I don't know how they could do
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I had kids, I was like, God bless single moms, because
Sure.
I have a husband and I don't even know how we're doing it.
Right. No,
So-
fair enough.
Yep.
And part of, the burden of single moms is not only providing, but then you have to go and you're busy.
Yes.
And, survival is such that you hope that kids can take care of themselves
Yeah.
and they're not going to be a huge burden. So,
Right.
I mean, yeah.
And the work ethic,
Wow.
if anyone could have received the services and everything, she was, a prime candidate, but she
Sure.
really made it a
Sure.
point to do what she had to do to not receive the
That's
services
incredible.
and just
Yeah.
really hard working person.
Wow.
So lifestyle as a teenager was just crazy. When I say crazy, it was just partying, blacking out, fighting, just any kind of
Wow.
conflict in the house always had to do with just, it was just chaotic. I
Okay.
mean, it was fireworks. If there was ever
Sure.
a discussion, a
Okay.
conflict discussion, it was a big deal. So just,
And that's by constant stress.
yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Constant underlying. I mean, but a lot of people can't, it's hard to wrap their heads around, but when it's constant survival mode, then conflict is dog eat dog. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, I've got to kill you figuratively before you kill me. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, I learned really young to sort of self-regulate and kind of take care of myself.
Uh-huh.
Became very savvy with getting my needs met, making money, the different things I needed to do to make sure I was okay and I wasn't putting a burden on mom
Wow.
or on anyone else.
Okay.
So really, I think, God wired me a certain way, but then
Sure.
those circumstances really hijacked that and made me very self-sufficient, not
How
in a good
old
way.
were you when you started making money?
Honestly, I don't really know. I would say it wasn't so much making the money, it was getting the stuff. So
Oh, no kidding.
So, for example, school shopping would come around.
Okay.
And, mom didn't have a lot of money to go
Yeah.
buy us school clothes.
Uh-huh.
But, I'd be darned if I was going to show up to school without the stuff I wanted.
Right.
So I would know how to work it. I would
Okay.
find the people who I knew had the money, and then I would figure out how to, somehow manipulate a situation.
Oh,
it was
wow.
it was instinctual.
Isn't that something?
Yep. So
Wow.
I very much learned to be self-sufficient in that way. And then, at 19, I had a friend, I was going through a breakup. It was my first and only serious boyfriend. Had a really hard breakup, painful breakup, and I had a friend invite me to church.
Okay.
And so she was persistent, and the Lord touched my heart. I surrendered to him. I moved out of the house I was living in and into a house with a family from the church that
Okay.
took in students, the ministry school we were a part of. And so I lived there, and just radical turnaround in my life. I
Wow.
went from being woken up in the morning to my brother lifting up the blankets and blowing pot smoke under the blanket to
Oh.
wake me up.
There you go.
That's how
Wake
my
and
wake
bacon.
up. Exactly. So I went from that to like this perfect Christian family that was just like so generous, so kind. And so
That must have been weird.
it really was, but I knew it was the right thing
Okay.
for me, and I needed to just stay put.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So you went from chaos to, I'm guessing, relatively calm.
very calm.
And,
Yes.
describe that process.
I felt like that first year, I just cried. I just
Wow.
cried. I had held in so much emotion. I wasn't, I guess I just didn't give myself permission to
Oh, yeah.
process things for so long that when the Lord, revealed himself to me in that way, it's like all I could do was just cry all that pain out.
Oh, my goodness.
So I
Wow.
felt like I was a baby for that first year. I was just,
Wow.
that's all I could do. And
I
so
mean,
it was very healing. It was amazing. And I had a
bet.
very safe place to do that and to process that. So,
Well, and how okay that is, right?
right.
Yeah.
And it's not losing it.
Right.
It's actually giving it a chance to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So I would say maybe 2 years later, I got a boyfriend. First year of our ministry school, we were not allowed to date. That was the big rule. And I'm so glad it was there. I didn't need to be dating. I had no business dating anybody. But my husband, I met him, his sister and I went to the school together. And so I met her and then I met him. And their family is just, polar opposite my family. They're, great Christian family, stability in the home, 2 parents, great values, all of that. And so I thought at first, my husband thought I was a wild woman because just the stuff I would pop off with and come out with. And he just rolled with the punches, just
right on.
Very redemptive. I think he likes a little of the wild side. So we end up getting married early at 22. I had just turned 22. He was just about to turn 23. And so we spent the first probably 5 years of our marriage just traveling, going on missions trips, going to different countries, just getting really plugged into our church and going after God together. It was a lot of fun. So cool. Had to work on our marriage quite a few times just with me growing up with a single mom. Again, very independent, had to learn honor, had to learn to work. One of the funny stories is we went on a missions trip. There was probably a group of 8 of us, and I was just ready to get to the front of the line. So I didn't realize that if I checked in way before my husband, like we weren't going to be able to sit together. So I ended up checking in, not even paying attention to where he was. And we had to ride to a country in the Middle East separately on the airplane.
Oh boy.
So we had to talk about that. He's like, you're married now.
Oh boy. But I could just see that like survival mode, automatic, like I got to take care of myself.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
So a lot of, as you could probably fill in the blanks, there was a lot of things we had to work through just in our marriage with that. But but other than that, relatively stable. I mean, we bought our first house. We, had gone to all these different countries and thought that, life was in a good place to start thinking about kids. Mm-hmm. And so we were, I think, 5 years married at that time. And we thought we're going to try to make a baby and see what happens. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of where this part starts. So again, being a achiever and wanting to get things done, we decided the weekend of my husband's birthday, which was the end of August 30th, was the weekend we were going to try. Like, this is it. This is going to be the weekend. Right? So you know how babies are made, right? So that thing happened.
Confused.
Yeah. So we did the thing and then we just laid there. We're like, okay, I think that was it. I think we're pregnant. We were just ready. And so, of course, pregnancy test time comes and not pregnant. So I was like, well, I heard it takes sometimes a couple months for this. So no big deal. I think I was like 26 at that time. And so, again, prizing myself on like achieving, getting things done, it really messed with me because in my mind, I'm thinking this should be easy and I should be in control of how this goes. And so it wasn't working.
Okay.
So I would say about a year went by and I started really stressing out. I wouldn't tell you I was stressed because, stiff I have
upper
faith
lip.
and I'm trusting God, but everything else is obviously telling me I'm not. But my body started to show symptoms of toxic stress.
Oh my gosh.
So I had hair falling out. I lost a whole bunch of weight that wasn't healthy for my body. I had hives and I had a whole crazy physical reaction happening. Heart palpitations, all the stuff. And so I went to a bunch of doctors and they're like, we don't know what's wrong with you. Finally, they checked my thyroid. This was after about 6 months of just testing and things and found out my thyroid was just totally out of whack. And they diagnosed me with an autoimmune thyroid disease. And so it was technically like an overactive thyroid. So the problem was they said you can't keep trying to get pregnant. It's very dangerous until you get your thyroid under control because it could be harmful to pregnancy. So I'm like, well, that stinks because this is our goal. We have a goal that we're trying to do. It's not the plan. Yeah. So, and then the other problem was whenever they would test me, the levels were all over the place. So they couldn't treat me with medication because there was no baseline.
Right. Okay.
And so they said, basically your body is trying to kill your thyroid. And
Wow.
we want it to go ahead and just kill your thyroid so that we can supplement the levels once it's. And I'm
Wow.
like, are you kidding
Wow.
me? So I don't accept it. I'm not going to receive that. And so I just continue making the lifestyle changes I need to. I really got a hold of the toxic stress that was really opening the door wide open, I believe,
Okay.
to that condition. And so made those changes.
Just out of curiosity, Elaina, so part of, we talked about even stress and control is the load you take on. And so, and you're an achiever, right? And so my assumption is then you're taking on a bunch of different loads,
Yes.
including, I've got to start making babies here.
Yep.
Okay. So I mean, at some point realizing there's stuff you got to let go instead
Yes.
of taking on more stuff, which is a whole identity
Totally.
craziness. Okay.
Totally. And, a lot of it had to do with work responsibilities, things that weren't being put on me, but things that I was taking on
Sure.
because I could do it. Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be easy. I had no margin whatsoever. I just was living at the very end of every time
So
I had.
I have a buddy who's a 3, and he says his big saying is, people love my dysfunction.
Yeah.
Because the dysfunction of a 3 is perform and do more.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when it benefits other people, wow.
And it gets celebrated.
Yes. Oh my
Especially
goodness.
in the church, it's something you have to really be
Absolutely. You're
discerning of,
absolutely right.
Because
Churches
it changes.
don't have good boundaries a lot of times.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you have to learn to tell people what your boundaries are. And so I
Right.
think it's a double-sided responsibility,
Yeah.
really. So I had to do some of that, put those boundaries up, hard stops in certain areas, things I said yes to. Anyways, long story short, I felt like, praying into it, asking the Lord for wisdom, I felt like he was showing me that your words are so important, the things that you speak over your body. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen the rice experiment before. There's a rice experiment. If you just Google it, it's all over the internet, but you take 3 jars of cooked rice and you speak like positive words over one, you speak negative words over another, and then the other one you just leave as like a control. And at the end of however much time you give it, I don't know if you do like a month or whatever, the rice that you're speaking positivity over, it's just beautiful. It's white still. There's no decay whatsoever. The rice you're speaking negativity over, it's decayed, it's brown,
Wow.
it's moldy, and then the other one just has like a natural digression,
Yeah.
And so I thought, I need this visual to see what's happening when I pray for my thyroid or when I speak the word of God and declare those promises over my thyroid. So I set the rice up in my little room I had, and then I put a mirror at the end. And so I, did the experiment. And then when I got to the mirror, I said, your thyroid is healthy. Your blood is normal. Your immune system has the discernment it needs to know what's your body and what is not. And I needed that visual. And at the end, the rice experiment worked.
Wait, when you say end, how long are we talking about here?
It was about 6 weeks or so.
Okay. Wow.
Yep. So
Crazy.
It was just something that God just dropped in my heart to do. And I thought,
Okay.
I'm gonna try it. What else do I have to lose?
Sure.
And so I went to church one night, and this woman comes up to me, didn't know me at all. And she says, they're going to do a test. They're going to look for it, and they're not going to find it.
Oh.
And I was like, huh? What is that all about? Next morning, little did she know, I had an appointment to have my levels checked again.
Oh, wow.
And when they checked my levels a couple days later, I got a note from my doctor that says there is no evidence of any autoimmune condition in
Oh
your
my
blood.
gosh.
And so the Lord just, he did it. And so
total insanity.
it was amazing.
Yeah.
And it was just, I think it was partly the fuel I needed to sort of keep going on this journey.
So did the rice change color?
I threw it out.
So did it actually
yes,
like the 3?
yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. If you just look up online.
So the same thing in the experiment happened to you.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Exactly.
That
the same
completes the circle for me. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. He's like, what happened to the rice?
We're doing this in the office, by the way,
Yeah,
for
right.
all of our clients to see.
I was like,
Oh, wow.
I'm not kidding. It's incredible. And
Yeah.
the person that did this experiment, I don't even believe they're a Christian person. It was
Yeah.
just like a scientific experiment. So anyways, that happened. So I thought, okay, great. Now we can get on with the baby making and we could get this party started again. And so,
So was this you feeling that achievement?
Oh, probably.
Right? Like
100%.
Like kind of look what I did. I did this whole.
I think so. And for me, it was, I need to stay encouraged. And this is how I know to stay encouraged is to do some sort of, it could move into dysfunction real easily, but I could see it as like I'm stewarding where I am.
No, that's exactly right.
You
You're
know?
absolutely right. And dysfunction is a matter of an extreme of something healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And so stepping into action, being called to action by the prompting of the Holy Spirit is a good thing, and we need to follow through.
Yep.
But then we start to take over, of course, and go, I got this.
And we start obsessing.
Yes.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So I think it was another year or so went by, still wasn't pregnant. So I think could be off on my timeline. I think it was about 3 years at this point. I went into a doctor's appointment, just an annual woman exam. And I just happened to mention to the doctor how we had been trying to get pregnant. And he said, well, that's it. I'm going to send you to the infertility specialist. And up until that point, I was kind of in this limbo if I should go to a doctor, because I think sometimes our spirituality, I feel like sometimes it could wage a warfare on us if we're not careful. And so I would think in my mind, if I go to a doctor, this means I don't trust God. This means I don't believe in miracles.
Wow.
And it's like my own spirituality started to sort of taunt me. And it was, I felt really helpless in that. And I thought, well, I want to trust God. I want to believe that I'm going to have this miracle baby, but I also think I might need some help. And so the doctor sort of made the decision for us. He said, I'm sending you to the specialist. And I thought, okay, cool. It feels right. Let's do it. So before we get to the specialist up in Sacramento, they say there's a whole bunch of tests you need to do before we'll even see you. So I did a whole bunch of tests, in office tests, as well as just blood tests, things like that. So after a couple months, finally get to the first consultation. And they lay out our options, and there's anything from, a little bit of medication, kind of time some things, all the way to IVF, which is in vitro fertilization.
Right.
Anyone who's not familiar with that, it's basically where they take the egg from the woman's body, a sperm from the man, they put it in a dish, and they make an embryo that's then placed back into the woman's body to hope a pregnancy
Where's
would
the fun
occur.
in that?
I know. So I heard that and I thought, I don't know about that. It sounds very invasive. There's a lot of shots involved. It was just the thought of it was really scary. That was like last resort. So we did the first few things that they recommended we do, and those things didn't work out. And there was one test that they hadn't had me do because I was under 30. And the test was called AMH, and it stands for anti-Müllerian hormone, which corresponds with the woman's egg count or quality. And so they don't usually test women under a certain age for those because they just figure things are fine. So up to that point, I was unexplained infertility according to their diagnosis. So I did all the things, the initial medications and little things I could do, and it wasn't coming back with the pregnancy. So they thought, we're just going to test that AMH after all. And so they tested it, and it came back with this crazy number, which I can't remember now if it was high or low, but whatever it was, it meant that my eggs were very few.
Wow.
Or the quality was really poor. And so I was just devastated. I'm like, what in the world? Like, I wasn't even 30 years old yet. I think I was maybe 28, 29.
Oh, wow.
And so in one phone call, it went from IVF is this total last resort to IVF may not even be an option for you because you have to have eggs to do IVF. And so they immediately put us on a waiting list to do IVF, and we just went with it. It cost $20,000. We weren't really sure where that was going to come from.
Oh, wow.
But the Lord provided it. It worked out. We had all the money we needed at the right time and started the process. So there's a bunch of shots I had to do.
Oh my gosh.
About halfway through, they would check you to kind of see how things are developing. And I remember at one point feeling outside of my body, like, you kind of have to detach after a while when there's so many tests and so many different things that you just go numb. And I remember at times just like standing there in the shower saying, telling my body, you're doing a good job. Thank you so much for doing this. Because it was just, I had to sort of stay present with it. So about halfway through, the doctor says, you're not progressing the way we need you to progress in order to do an egg retrieval. And so we were, again, just didn't know what to do. We would have lost out on all this money. And then they said, you could try again if you want, which would have been another $20,000.
Oh, mercy.
So we were just like, what in the world? So we needed a certain amount of eggs to develop in a couple days. We made it by the skin of our teeth. We got in, we did our egg retrieval procedure, which I had to go under anesthesia, and it's just, you know, all your dignity is gone at that point. They just have to get the eggs out. And so typically in an IVF situation, they'll retrieve anywhere from, you know, everyone's different, but anywhere from like 15 to sometimes like high 20s, 30s.
Okay.
And they'll say out of the 20 eggs we retrieved, 15 were mature. And out of the 15 that were mature, 10 fertilized. And out of the 10 that fertilized, you know, 6 are viable for an embryo transfer to go back in. So they retrieved 4 eggs.
Oh boy.
So I was like, okay, Lord, thank you for the 4.
Wow.
I'm just going to keep my mind on the positive here. Thank you, Lord, for the 4. And they said out of the 4 that were retrieved, 4 were mature. I'm like, thank you for the 4. Out of the 4 that were mature, all 4 fertilized. So it was just crazy odds. So we ended up, after a few days, we ended up with 2. So they said that you can transfer one back in or you can transfer them both in. If you transfer the one, we do have to discard the second one because it's not good enough quality to freeze. So we're like, we'll put them both in. So, you know, again, in my mind, you know, no pun intended, all our eggs were in this one basket,
Jeez,
you know? So it's like, this has to work. And again, going back to my sort of tendency to get real fixated on, you know, what do we have to do? You know, I'm eating all the right stuff. I'm not resting or I'm resting. I'm trying not to work, all the things. And so we were just waiting for this result. And so it was my husband's birthday weekend again. So kind of going back full circle here, the weekend we decided to first try to get pregnant. And I thought, wow, how amazing would this be? This is the weekend that we started to try. And so my husband was in DC at the time, and he was coming home on his birthday, and I thought, I'm going to take a test. I'm not supposed to take a test, but I'm going to take a test before he gets home, and so that way I could surprise him for his birthday. That's what I'm thinking. And so the test is negative, but I'm thinking, okay, it was just too early. They told me not to test. I'm just going to wait for the blood test. So we're sitting in church, one of our campuses here in Turlock. We were the campus pastors at the time there, and we were sitting there, and I get a phone call from our doctor. And so we ran out of the service. We ran to the front of the entry area, and they just tell us, real matter of fact, we're sorry, this didn't work. Call us back if you want to try again later. We're like totally stunned, right?
Oh, jeez.
So we're just like, what in the world just happened? So we go back in the church. Service is sort of coming to a close, and my husband still needs to go up and facilitate communion in the service. And so I'm like, you're gonna need to go up by yourself. And I just remember sitting on that front row going so stone cold, like everything I knew to just shove that pain so far down that I didn't have to think about it. I just stone cold, like something just died. I felt in that moment. And so he's on the stage, he's receiving communion, and he's crying. And my husband doesn't cry at all.
Wow.
And so people in the audience are thinking, oh, he's just really into this communion message, you know, wow, he's really heartfelt. And I'm just sitting there like, I know exactly what's happening. It was just very, very hard, very devastating. So that was September 1st. We went home, turned off our phones, and we just laid on our bed and we just cried for probably 12 hours. We just laid there. And it was, I would say through this whole journey, it was like we called it the darkest night, September 1st. And just, you know, I've never really struggled with suicidal ideologies. I never really struggled with that. But that day I remember thinking he would be so much better without me. I'm the problem. If it wasn't for me, he would have the child he wants. And if I wasn't here, he could move on with his life. He could get married quickly and have another
Crazy
baby.
how our mind betrays us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I just remember laying there, it just felt like a torrential pouring of just sadness. It was just unreal. I never experienced anything like that before. So the next day we did what anyone else would do. We went to the zoo. I don't know why we went to the zoo.
Naturally, it tracks.
Yeah. We need to go to the zoo. So we took our niece and nephew to the zoo because we wanted to we needed some brightness,
Yeah.
So we did that. And then shortly after that, I would say maybe 2 months later, my husband, he comes across this program online, and it's called Snowflake Adoption, which essentially, having gone through IVF, understand now that many people end up with embryos that they don't intend to put back in. Some end up with 20 embryos, 18. 10, most people aren't going to want to have that many children.
Wow.
So they're faced with a decision. They're either going to freeze them indefinitely, donate them to science, which is really they're just going to destroy them, or they can donate them to people.
Oh my goodness.
It's just it's wild. So cool. And so we went on this website, we paid for an account, made a profile, and as potential recipients of embryos. And it was just the weirdest experience because remember like those old movies with the adoption, there's like the kids and they're putting on their best face to hopefully get a parent, adopt them. It's like we were doing that, but trying to prove that we were worthy of being a parent, you know, it's very humbling. So we put up our best like family style photos and talked about how, all our values, things like that. And we ended up matching with this woman in another state. Her husband, she and her husband had gotten a divorce and they had multiple embryos. And so long story short, we ended up in contract with this woman. COVID hit, so it kind of took a little bit longer, but we ended up adopting 3 embryos from another person. And her and her husband her ex-husband were the same ethnicity as me and my husband. So we're like, we could possibly make this work really easily. And so around that time is when I started seeing Caroline. So Caroline offering pastoral counseling, biblical counseling rather. And so it was really helpful for me to go. And I remember telling her one time, I don't know why, I just have more faith that I'm going to conceive naturally than any of this stuff working. It just blurted out of my mouth. Whoa. And I thought, well, that kind of shocked me to even hear that. And so, long story short, we had transferred one of those embryos and it didn't work out. I had a chemical pregnancy, so I was pregnant for about the weekend.
Oh, wow.
But I said, you know what? I'm going to thank God because I've never seen a positive pregnancy test before. I've never even gotten this far in the process. So I'm going to just thank God for this weekend because this is a milestone for us. And I think that was really a key, is just keeping that heart of gratitude, because it could have been a pity party forever.
Sure, absolutely.
And so anyways, we were gearing up to do another embryo transfer in February of 2021. So we thought we're going to take off a couple months and just, not worry about it, not focus on it. And so in January of that year, so 1 month prior, I got pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was like, is this real? And so I remember waking my husband up. I took a test because I was like 9 days late on my cycle. And I'm like, this is not normal for me. So I woke him up. I stuck the test in his face, so my urine is like right, right in his
absolutely.
eye.
It's like how every man wants to be woken
exactly.
up.
Look at this test. And so we were still a little cautious because we had just seen a positive test that wasn't truly.
Boy, what a roller coaster.
It was absolutely crazy. So we thought, okay, tomorrow we're going to test again. If the line gets a little bit darker, then we'll know that HCG hormone is in there and we're going. And so we ended up getting pregnant. And the craziest part about this whole story, this is the part I didn't even realize until a couple months ago, because I'm writing this out. I want to write. I'm trying to write this in a book, to be honest. Like I'm trying to get this all out there. And so lining all the dates up. So my son was born a week early, and his birthday ended up being September the 1st.
Oh my gosh.
Which was the darkest day.
The D-Day.
The D-Day.
Yeah.
And so that was just the icing on the cake for us, because
oh my gosh,
through all of this,
it's like a sign from the Lord.
It
it's
really,
like, hey,
really
I got
was.
You.
It really was. And I really felt in my heart him speaking to me and telling me this isn't going to end with a human solution. You're not going to be able to look and say, we did all these things. You
Right.
threed your way through this and we figured it out. Like, this is going to end with me coming through the way I said it was going to come through.
Yes.
And I truly believe that he did that in a big way. And so about a year later, we got pregnant again, naturally.
Oh my gosh.
With our second son, Jude. So he just turned 1 on Tuesday. Yeah, last Tuesday.
Right on.
So yeah.
So
that's
Jude and what's your first name?
Jonathan.
Jonathan and Jude. Right
Yep.
on.
Cute
So
boys.
that's our
Wow.
story. Amazing.
Congratulations.
Just God's story, really. So thank you.
So,
love
I
it.
mean, all the moments of, like you said, darkness and doubt, and I imagine also hoping, and then
Yes.
being dashed and disappointed. I mean, how many of us, I mean, it may not be fertility or having children, it may
Right.
be other things that we can like hear this and go, oh, wait a second. This is God's story.
Yep.
Right. Ultimately, this is God's story.
Yeah.
So now what you have to look forward to is then, of course, raising toddlers.
Yes.
And then children, and then teenagers, and then young adults. So the prayers should not cease.
They just get ramped up. So.
That's
It's
right.
still God's story.
It's still
Yeah.
God's story. Wonderful.
And I think that's one of it's been an honor to walk through part of the story with you
Yeah.
through the ups and downs, but to see how you've constantly used your story to help others, and that even
Right.
now you use your story to encourage other people to tell their story and
Yes.
use their story
Absolutely.
to help others. And
Yes.
it's just this constant giving that you keep doing, which is just, it's so beautiful to watch.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate, these stories shouldn't be clean necessarily. Wait,
No.
what do I mean by clean? No,
Well,
I mean
I'm-
like in a box, like
Right,
in
because
a
the story
tidy.
of
Tidy
our-
is what I mean.
Right.
The story of our
Not
redemption,
rated R.
which we'll get to redemption stories
Yes.
eventually in a few weeks. The story of redemption isn't clean.
And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And just, it's hard. I'm sure it's hard when you're in the middle of it to realize, hey, wait a second. This is another redemption story.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a sub story of the whole story,
Right.
which is ultimately not our story.
Yeah.
So, Elaina, thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so much
guys.
for
What
an
coming.
honor.
It's
Thank
been
you.
awesome.
And if you have a celebrity sighting, don't forget to honk your horn
Yes.
and don't get in an accident.
And buy the tacos.
We do autographs, okay, you guys. We don't carry our own pens, though. No.
But be sure and leave a review
Yeah, like
and
and
a
subscribe.
comment, because we like the comments too. And please share with a friend.
Yeah. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
thanks.
Thanks for joining us today as we continue our journey talking about life's many questions.
To stay connected with us, you can follow us at Downey Park Counseling on both Facebook and Instagram. You can also follow Caroline on Instagram at Relatable Caroline. And make sure you tune in next week for our next question.